Hello everyone, welcome back to another tutorial, and in today's lesson I'm going to show you guys how we can create a simple registration page in Netbeans. Now this will obviously connect to a database, which you can see I've already set up right here on my desktop. It's a Microsoft Access database, and this is basically a continuation of our previous video where we got started with SQL. Now if you haven't seen that video, I'll put the link in the description so you guys can check that out, because this part 2 is a continuation of part 1. And part 3 will basically be how to create a login screen. So for now, let's get started. You can see I've already created a simple registration page using username ID, first name, last name, gender, and your email. And obviously there's a register button right here, which you click on once you've filled in all the data. So I think I just messed it up. Control Z. Okay, so let's get started here. Now as you can see, this is what the registration page looks like. There we go. So you can see we got username, first name, last name, your gender. You guys can obviously put other, just in case, you know. You never know with people these days. So yeah, let's open up our database. Now as you can see, a very important thing to note is that this file has to be .mdb extension, which means it has to be saved as an Access 2002 or 2003 database file format, basically. Otherwise, it will not work. If you're using Access 2013 like I am, it'll save it as some other thing, ACCDB or some random thing like that. But basically, if you're using 2007, 2010, or 2013 Microsoft Access or your Microsoft package, you'll be able to save it as MDB file format. You just have to go to File, Save As, which in this case does not work, obviously, because it's a Microsoft product. Nothing works in Microsoft. I honestly have no idea what's happening here. It's got some random thing, there's no save as, I can't even click on save. So I had to basically take my older database and then try modifying it, which took me about 20 minutes because there's no function to save. Well, there wasn't earlier. But anyways, I've created a table called table users, and the primary key, as you can see, is the ID field. Everything saved as short text. As you can see, everything is in the same file order as what you see in Netbeans. Now, if you guys think I'm rushing this, you do have to follow the first tutorial. I explain how to do everything here. I'm not going to explain it again because this tutorial is going to be like 30 minutes long. So I'm not going to show you guys how to do that. You already should know. And yeah, these are the fields. So I'm just going to close that. And then what you want to do is, obviously once you've created your package, which once again I expect you guys to know how to do, since I've created a full playlist on Netbeans Beginner and Advanced. If you guys don't know how to do the stuff in Netbeans, please make sure you follow this playlist. So yeah, what you want to do now is you want to go to the files, just click on files, and then click on your project name. So in this case, I named my project name registration. So I'm going to look for registration. I found it right here. Then I'm going to delete this old database because that had a problem with it. And you just want to drag and drop this anywhere you want in the root folder, basically, so directly in registration. Another way to do this is to open your Netbeans project folder, locate your file, and as you can see, it's the same thing here. It's a bit easier to see on this one, but obviously you guys can use the files because that's what it's there for. So let's go ahead and close that, and let's get into the coding part of things. Now the first thing we want to do is we want to create a new Java class. So right click, new Java class, and then name it anything you want. So I'm going to name mine DB class. Basically, whenever I have something to do with a database, I save the class as DB class. So let's click on finish, and let's just clean this up a bit. Netbeans always, does some stupid stuff. And let's just clean it. Okay, now we're ready to type some code. And obviously, you guys can see that my theme is different to yours. It's just a theme. I've downloaded a new style. I forgot what it's called, but it's basically a replication of Sublime Text 2, which I think looks pretty good. It's a bit easier to look at than a bright white screen. That's why I changed it. So anyways, now this is a lot of code. It's a lot of detailed code. It's not actually a lot of it, but it's a lot detailed. So I probably will be making a mistake somewhere. Hopefully I don't, but we'll just see as we type it. So the first thing I want to do is create a connection. So connection con. Just name it whatever you want, add the import for that. And now we want to create a constructor. So DB class, here we go. Now try and catch. So let's just do that now while we're here. and I'm just gonna put it as exception E, because I don't need to have intense handling right now. I mean, obviously system will output print again. E. The only reason why I'm doing this exception handling here is because I probably will make a mistake while typing this code, since it is a little bit hectic. So the first thing we want to do is we want to declare our file name. So string file name, basically the file name of our actual database file, and that's equal to tutorial.mdb semicolon. Now at this point I'm just going to zoom in so you guys can see the text that I'm typing, because it is a bit difficult to explain exactly what's happening here. So anyways, we want to say string database, and this is going to be the drivers that we use. So string database is equal to, and that's obviously we're going to be creating a string. So let's just do that now. And now what we want to say is the JDBC and ODBC drivers. So make sure you put those double colon things. So driver, and then it's equal to the Microsoft Access driver. So driver is equal to, you gotta put these curly brackets, and then type in Microsoft Access driver. Make sure it's all the same case. Leave a space, put a parentheses, and you want to type in star.mdb, and then put the closing curly bracket. I'm not sure what it's called. And then you're going to put in dbq is equal to, that's it. And now we want to say database is equal to database plus. An easier way to do that is just to say database plus equals. So plus equals, or equals plus, I guess is the same thing. Plus the file name. So file name is where my cursor is now. And you want to say file name.trim. So .trim plus, and I'm going to create a string, semicolon first, driver ID is equal to 22, and then read only, make sure you put the semicolon again, read only equal to false, because we obviously want to write to the database, not just read from it. But obviously that's a nice tip if you want to create better security from reading to the database, so people cannot directly write to your database. So hopefully that's correct. And then the last bit of code is to create the connection. So connection is equal to the driver manager dot get connection, and then obviously we need to put our parameters, which is database, and then username and password, which in this case is just going to be blank because there is no username and password. And then you just want to add the import for the driver manager. Okay, and that's it. And I just added a symbol string at the bottom to tell me if the connection is successful. It'll say connection passed. You guys don't have to put that, but I just put it anyways. So let's run our program. Oh, and I actually forgot to create an object. So go back to Start GUI, double click on the register button, and then you want to create an object. So DB class, and then just give it a random variable name, DB is equal to new DB class. Open close bracket, semicolon, and we are ready to go. Now obviously we created an object, but because we have a constructor, the constructors automatically run as soon as it's accessed, so we don't actually have any instances of classes and stuff. So let's click the register button, and it's given me an error, of course. Let's see what the error is. Invalid connection string attributes. So let's take a look. Okay, and the error is right here after this curly bracket. I'm sorry if you guys can't see this, it highlights it in yellow, so it's a bit difficult, but it's just before DBQ. You just want to put a semicolon right there. Now let's try it out again. Hopefully this works. And yes, it has, so it's connection passed. So you guys can see it is a bit finicky, especially with all these random characters everywhere. Now a thing to note is that if you are unable to create a connection even though your database class is 100% correct, the problem is because you're most likely using 64-bit Java. So what you want to do is you want to go to the JDK, just open up Google, type in JDK, and then you want to download the 32-bit version of Java. This should all be familiar to you guys because we've covered this before. Okay, so you can see JDK 7U40, and click on download. And if you're using 64-bit Windows, you want to make sure you download the 32-bit, the x86 version. Now this is because it does not work in 64-bit. My internet's really slow, so I'm not going to get into that. But just right click on the project, go down to properties, libraries, click on manage platforms, and then you want to add a platform. Now I suggest you save everything in the default location because it's easier to find. So because we're using a 32-bit program, it will be saved in program files x86. Then you're just going to go down, look for Java, and then choose JDK 1.7 or whatever you have. And you just click on next and you rename it. Make sure you rename it to JDK 1.7 or 1.8 or whatever you're using, just so that you guys can identify between 32-bit and 64-bit. You can see I have JDK 1.7 default and I have JDK 1.7 32-bit version. So you want to make sure you use the 32-bit version. If you don't, you'll see what will happen right here. It'll give you an error always. So you can see it cannot find the driver or something. And sorry about my new style of how I'm doing things. I moved it over onto the other side. But you can see data source not found, no default driver. So you want to make sure you have the 32-bit version. Otherwise it will not work ever. And it took me forever to actually figure that out the first time. And you can see connection paused. Okay, so now that we've created a connection, what we can do is we want to insert into the database. Okay, so let's create another method right here. So let's say public void, I seriously cannot type, public void, let's call it write to, basically write to database, why not? Okay, there we go. Now we want to have a couple of parameters. The parameters depend on how many stuff you have here. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 stuff to input into a database. You guys already know from our previous SQL tutorial that you actually have to have the exact amount of fields when you're using the SQL command to write to a database. So we have to make sure that we have 5 fields. So let's create all of them as strings because we've specified all strings in our database. So I'm just going to copy and paste that because I already typed it out. So there we go, string user name, string user, string name, last, gender, and the email. Now what we can basically do is create a try and catch. Once again, try and catch, exception E. And you guys can have more exceptions because there's a few things that can go wrong, such as not being able to connect. The primary key has already been found, but yeah, whatever. So, okay, we've got system.out.println, so we can see what the problem is if we do have a problem. Now, basically what we want to do is want to copy the first 4 lines, basically this entire bit right here. And that's about it. Now what we need to do is we need to actually do the SQL statements for this. Okay, so now that we have the connection done, what we need to do is we need to actually use the SQL commands to get it into, not ready commands, SQL statements, to get it into the database. So this is why we had to do the tutorial before, because I showed you guys how we can use SQL statements. It's very similar. So what we need to do is we need to actually create a statement. So let's say statement STA, and then that equals to connection.create statement. So connection.create statement, there you go, that's it. And obviously we have to add the import for SQL.statement. Okay. So now what we need to do is we actually need to execute an update. So we're going to say int s for statement, or you guys can name it whatever you want. And that is equal to sta, which is the statement above what we just typed, sta.execute update. Now, this is where our SQL statement comes in. So we need to say insert into, basically this is our SQL statement now. Insert into TBL users, that's our table name. Did I type that right? No. TBL users, and then the values. So now this is where the problem comes in. As you guys know, whenever you input a string into SQL, when you want to insert into a table, you have to have these double quotes, which becomes a problem in Netbeans because we use double quotes to declare strings and stuff. So we need to use escape characters. So the way that this is going to be done is we need to type in a single quote, then a double quote. Then we need to type in plus user. Now, I'm going to explain what we're doing here really quickly, just so you guys don't get lost. So the reason why I'm saying plus user is because we're getting a variable name called user up top right here in the parameters for our method. So whatever you type in this variable name for user, basically we're going to make this text field, whatever you type in here, equal to this right here, this user variable. So that will automatically be taken and inserted into the database as one of the fields. Now if you don't want to do that, if you just want to input set values or whatever, you guys can obviously just type it in directly, which makes things a bit easier, but obviously that's not practical because this is a registration page. So hopefully you guys do understand a bit what's going on here. It's already 18 minutes into the tutorial, or not really 18 minutes, but lower than that. But yeah, okay, so plus user, we're going to say plus, double quotes, single quotes, and there you go. Now you just have to keep repeating this all the time. Make sure you put the semicolon, single quote, double quote, plus. Second one is name, plus double quote, single quote, and then comma again and again and again. So I'm just going to copy and paste this for now, and I'll be back with you guys in a second. Okay, so hopefully I did this correctly. This is what it should look like. Obviously, if it's not correct, it'll just give us an error and we can fix that a bit later. Okay, so that's it. Now we're done. Now we can just say system.out.println and then say inserted into database. Okay, so let's just build it so we don't lose our program. Now what we need to do is we need to obviously call this in our GUI. So let's double click our register button, and now what we need to do is we need to create an instance of that method. We're going to say db, which is basically our database class variable right here, db. So we're going to say db dot write to database, and we can see it just said null, 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 null. Now we need to get the text out of all these fields. So what we need to do is we're just going to say straight up, let's just see what the name of the variable name is. So id fname lname. Okay, so we're going to say right here id.getText. It basically gets the text and puts it into the parameter for user. So basically whatever you type in into this field, when you click the register button, it'll take whatever text is out of this field and store it in the variable called user, and then user will be used as the actual value to be inputted into the database. So we're just going to keep on doing this. So fname name.getText. GetText is pretty easy to remember. Filename.getText. Ah, jeez, I can never type. It's just so irritating sometimes. I even forgot that. Okay, let's just ignore that one for now. Email.getText. Okay, so when we're working with drop-down menus, it's a bit different. You can't get the text, so it's a bit different. The code. Let's see what it says. Gender. Okay, so we're gonna say gender.get. I think it's get selected item right there. That's for getting whatever item is chosen from a drop-down menu. Okay, and with get selected item, you have to convert it to a string. So the simplest way to convert something to a string is to put plus and then an empty string, and that automatically converts it. So let's clean and build, run, let's make this really quick. And let's click on register. Now it's going to tell us insert it into the database. So let's go and check what has been inserted into the database. Let's use the files because that's what it's here for. Open up tutorial.mdb. Yes, yes, okay. That did not work. Okay, so let's open up our database. Registration tutorial.mdb right here. Let's take a look at what has been inserted. So you can see it has in fact been inserted as an empty string with gender male. If we try doing it again, it'll give us an error because of the primary key. So what you guys can do is you guys can check if there's anything in each one of the fields. If it's blank, make it show you an error. If it's if your email does not have .com or the @ symbol, make it show an error. It's pretty simple how to do that. Basic Java really. and we got 2 of those running. Okay, so let's do this properly. Let's type in our ID, so VertexDigitalArts, and I'm just going to copy this to show you guys the primary key working. Let's type in my name, Let's delete that. I'm a male, and then our email is ceo@teknikindustries.com. And you guys can email me if you need help or anything. Obviously, you can check out my website, teknikindustries.com, right there. I'll put the link in the description. Click on register, it tells me insert it into the database. Let's go check our database out. And this is actually extremely buggy, this access. I'm not too sure why. But there we go, VertexDigitalArts, Mirrorsing, mail, and there's our email address. Now, let's see the primary key working. No. Where's it? Right here. Let's try registering again. So click on register and it tells us connection's fast, which it's working. So it's created a connection to the database, but then it tells us SQL exception general error. Not a very good error, but the general error means that there's already been a primary key and they've tried to input the same value twice in that field. So let's go check out our registration database and make sure that it hasn't been inputted twice, and no, it hasn't. So let's just change this up. VertexDigitalArts 2, click on register, insert it into the database, and there we go. You can see it is working perfectly. Obviously, you guys can add exception handling. You can add messages pop up. You know, you can do whatever you want. So that's just a basic tutorial on how to get a registration form working in Netbeans. In the next video, I'll show you guys how we can create a login screen similar to what I've created for Project Jarvis, which you guys can see right here any second. In 3, 2, 1, 0. There we go. This is what it looks like. Pretty cool looking actually. Secure login looks pretty cool. AES encryption. It is actually encrypted, by the way. But yeah, so we'll be creating a login screen in the next video. Hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. If you did, please don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe. You know, just the general stuff. If you guys need help, you can send me an email, Twitter, Facebook, you know, the general stuff. So anyways, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you later.